The morning light poured gently into the cramped one-room apartment in Ajangbadi. A pot of rice simmered quietly on the small kerosene stove, but peace was never welcome in that house. Useless woman, this rice again? You want to poison me with soft food? Kunle's voice sliced through the air like a blade. Ada stood quietly by the sink, wiping her hands on her wrapper. She didn't flinch, not anymore. After 4 years of marriage, she'd grown numb to the insults. She had learned the art of silence, the kind that swallowed pain without letting it spill. Kunle pushed the plate away with disgust, the spoon clattering onto the floor. When will you ever bring something valuable to this house, En? All you brought me was bad luck. Ada bent down slowly, picked up the spoon, rinsed it under the tap. She didn't respond. She never did. Her mother had once told her, "Storms don't last forever, but they can drown you if you open your mouth at the wrong time." But something inside her was changing, quietly, slowly. Kunle rose to his feet, tugging at his faded polo shirt. "I should have married someone from my level, not some orphan girl with no background, no money, no prospects." The words stung more than she wanted to admit. She had heard them 1,000 times, but today they carried a different weight. Maybe it was because her birthday was tomorrow. Maybe it was because of the strange dream she had last night, an image of a glowing woman in white calling her name. Or maybe it was because of the letter. She had found it tucked inside an old Bible, wrapped in a brown envelope. It was addressed to Adana, her birth name. The handwriting was unfamiliar, shaky, almost desperate. It wasn't from Mama Grace, the woman who raised her. No, this came from someone else. Someone who had written, "I never stop searching for you." Ada hadn't told Kunle about the letter. She hadn't told anyone. She didn't even know if it was real. But something in her spirit stirred when she read it, as if the life she'd accepted wasn't the only life she was meant to have. She returned to her corner, sat on the low stool, and quietly picked up her needle and thread. Sewing school uniforms for the neighbors' children barely paid enough for bread, but it was her one space of peace. Kunle hissed and grabbed his car keys. "I'm going to the bar. At least there I don't have to look at your miserable face." He slammed the door behind him. The rice kept simmering. Ada reached under the mattress and pulled out the letter again. Her hands trembled, but not with fear this time, with something else. A word she hadn't dared to feel in years. Hope. At the bottom of the letter was a name and a phone number. She whispered the name out loud. Chukwuma Obi. Her heart skipped. She didn't know yet that the man behind that name had hired investigators, that her face was already on a missing persons alert, and that this birthday would be unlike any other. She only knew one thing. She was going to call that number, and when she did, everything would begin to unravel. She doesn't know it yet, but she's not just married to cruelty. She's born for royalty. The phone rang once, twice, then a third time. Ada nearly hung up. Her thumb hovered over the red button when a deep voice came through the line. "Hello." She froze. Her throat tightened, her palms damp. She hadn't planned what to say. Her heart beat like a talking drum, loud and urgent in her ears. "Hello?" the voice repeated, more alert this time. "Who is this?" She swallowed hard. I found a letter. It said I should call this number. It mentioned the name Chukwuma Obi." There was a pause on the line. Then, "Where did you find that letter?" It was hidden in a Bible. My mother, well, the woman who raised me, she died years ago. But I think she left it for me to find." Silence. Heavy. Almost sacred. Then, the voice cracked. "My God! What's your name?" "Adana, but people call me Ada now." There was a muffled sound, as if the phone had slipped from trembling hands. When the voice returned, it was thick with emotion. "This is Chukwuma Obi," he said quietly. "You are my daughter." Ada couldn't breathe. "I've searched for 17 years, he continued. "You were taken from me when you were barely 1. They told me you drowned. I buried an empty coffin." Ada's knees gave way. She sank to the floor, phone still pressed to her ear. I don't understand, she whispered. You don't have to yet, he said. Just meet me, tomorrow. I'll send a car. Ada's mind raced. What if it was a scam? What if this man wasn't real? But something in his voice. It wasn't desperation. It was truth, pain, longing. She agreed to meet. When she hung up, she stayed on the floor staring at nothing, her breath shallow, her hands still trembling. Kunle returned later that evening, reeking of alcohol and pepper soup. You still awake? You should be grateful I even came home tonight, he muttered, tossing his belt onto the chair. Ada didn't answer. He looked at her. Something was different. Her face was calm. Her eyes didn't have that usual broken glaze. What? He barked. You finally realize you're lucky to have me. She looked him dead in the eyes. No, I finally realize you were never worthy of me. He blinked. What did you say? Ada rose slowly, folding the letter and placing it back under her wrapper. I'm leaving for the weekend. Leave? To where? On whose money? She smiled faintly. You'll find out soon enough. Kunle laughed, loud and cruel. You're bluffing. You're nothing without me. But she didn't respond. She walked into the bedroom, her shoulders straight. For the first time, Kunle felt something strange watching her walk away. He felt afraid. The next morning, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up outside their building. Kunle rushed out in his boxers, shocked. Two men in suits stepped out. Good morning, Ma, one of them said with a slight bow. Ada nodded, calm as ever. She got in the car without looking back, and as the doors shut, Kunle shouted after her, Where do you think you're going? She looked through the tinted glass and whispered to herself, Home. She's heading into a world of marble floors and old secrets, but some doors open to more than just riches. The drive was long and silent. Ada sat in the back seat, watching Lagos slip past like a dream. From the chaos of Ajangbadi, they passed through bustling Surulere and into the stillness of Ikoyi. The streets here were quiet, polished, dignified. Gates were tall. Guards stood like statues. Then they turned into a compound that looked like it belonged in a movie. A golden lion statue guarded the gate. The driveway curved around a water fountain that danced with music. Roses bloomed beside trimmed hedges. The air smelled of something Ada hadn't breathed in years. Peace. The car stopped. She stepped out slowly, her slippers clicking softly on the granite tiles. Everything looked too perfect, like even the dust had been banned from entering. Then the door opened. A tall man with greying hair stood there, dressed in white native wear with gold embroidery. His hands trembled. His eyes shimmered. He whispered, Adana. Ada opened her mouth, but no words came. She didn't know this man, and yet her soul did. Yes, she finally said, barely a whisper. In a heartbeat, he crossed the space between them and hugged her, tightly, as if trying to gather all the lost years into that single moment. I knew you were alive, he said, voice shaking. I knew! A woman stepped forward, graceful and regal, in a wine-coloured wrapper. Her eyes were kind but cautious. Chukwuma, she said softly. Let's take her inside. Ada was ushered in. The house smelled of lemon oil and old money. Every corner gleamed. Family portraits lined the walls. And in the centre of one frame was a baby girl, dark-eyed, chubby-cheeked. She stared at it. That's you, Chukwuma said, behind her. She blinked. But how? Why was I told nothing? Ada asked. He sighed and sat. You were kidnapped at one. The nanny, she betrayed us. They said you drowned in the lagoon. We believed them. We buried a tiny coffin filled with your clothes. But I never accepted it. I kept searching. Tears fell freely now. Ada didn't try to stop them. I grew up poor, she whispered. No real school. I had to hustle. I was insulted every day for being a nobody. You were never a nobody, Chukwuma said. You were royalty trapped in the wrong story. She looked up, eyes burning. Then why now? He reached into a drawer and brought out a folder. A recent NGO campaign for domestic violence survivors used your photo, your face. It reached someone who once worked in this house, and the resemblance to your late mother was undeniable. We ran it through facial tracking. Then we found your name on voter records. Everything matched. He paused. I know this is overwhelming, but I took a DNA test yesterday. I asked the driver to collect yours today. She stared at the box on the table. Swab kit. Simple. Terrifying. Do you want to know the truth? Ada looked around, at the chandelier, the velvet drapes, the ghost of a life that should have been hers, and nodded. As the nurse swabbed her cheek, she didn't tremble. But somewhere across Lagos, Kunle sat in their empty apartment, calling her phone over and over. No answer. And on her small sewing table, tucked beside the half-finished uniforms, lay the envelope she left behind, sealed with one sentence written in calm handwriting. By the time you read this, I'll finally know who I am. Truth is a door, but what it reveals may change more than just her name. 3 days. That's how long it took. 3 days of silence, of walking through a house too large to fill with thoughts, of eating from porcelain plates and wondering if her calloused hands belonged here. Ada stared at herself in the mirror of the guest room. The reflection didn't lie, but it also didn't feel familiar. She still wore her wrapper, her hair still in cornrows, but the woman in the mirror had something different now. Presence. The door creaked. It was Chukwuma. He stepped in gently, a white envelope in his hands. They just sent the results. Ada stood. She didn't blink. Chukwuma handed the paper over with trembling fingers. She read the line twice before the words landed. Probability of relationship, 99.9999%. Her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the ground. It's true, she whispered. I'm really your daughter. Chukwuma held her tightly. My Adana, my baby, my lost child. And as they cried in each other's arms, the past cracked like glass behind her. Memories flooded her. Mama Grace, never cruel, but always distant, the way she used to hush Ada anytime she asked about her real parents. The faded scars on Ada's ankle from the chain she used to see in the neighbor's yard. The sudden move to the village when she was 5. The way Mama Grace always kept their address hidden, even from relatives. It all made sense now. Someone had wanted her hidden. That evening, Chukwuma called a family meeting. They sat in the large drawing room, Ada beside him. The same woman who had once eaten dry Gary with tears now had servants offering her pineapple water and puff-puff. Everyone, meet Adana, Chukwuma said. My first child, my missing daughter. Gasps echoed. Cousins, uncles, aunts. Faces she didn't know stared at her in disbelief. She's been through hell, he continued, but she's back, and this time she stays. Some welcomed her with joy, some with quiet stares. But Ada only focused on one thing, peace. She had found it, at last, until her phone buzzed again. Kunle, missed call, 12 of them. She turned it off. But Kunle wasn't done. He was already pacing in their old apartment, shirtless, sweat glistening on his forehead. In his hand was the envelope Ada left behind. He read it for the 5th time, and finally, he snapped. This girl has found money, he muttered. I knew it. I knew she was hiding something. He grabbed his phone and began dialing random numbers from her old call logs. And when he found one with the name Chukwuma O, he smirked. Let's see who this rich man is, he said, putting on his fake polite voice. On the 5th ring, someone picked. Hello, Mr. Obi's residence, came a crisp voice. Kunle straightened. Yes, I'm Adana's husband. She left here without telling me anything. I'm worried. Please, I need to speak with her. Silence. Then, hold on, sir. Kunle grinned. Yes, hold on. But he didn't know he had just made the worst mistake of his life, because the voice on the other end was not a receptionist. It was Chukwuma's private security coordinator, and the call had just triggered a background check that would unravel Kunle's own secrets, secrets he thought no one would ever find. He tried to chase gold, but what he dug up was a trap with his name on it. Kunle paced the compound of his mechanic friend's shop, chain-smoking and muttering curses. His last 5 calls had gone unanswered. Ada had vanished and taken all her usefulness with her. She had dared to walk out on him. Now she had the audacity to ignore him. He dialed again. Still no answer. Meanwhile, at the Obi mansion, Ada sat across from a quiet man in a sharp suit. His name was Mr. Aniete, head of security for Chukwuma Obi's private estate. "There's something you should see," he said, placing a folder in front of her. Ada opened it slowly. The first page held a report. Subject, Kunle Adebayo, age 33, occupation, unstable, arrest record, suspicion of fraud, 2019, assault charges dropped, 2021, multiple reports of domestic abuse. Ada's heart sank. She had known he was cruel, but not criminal. "We ran a quiet trace after he called here pretending to be your husband," Aniete continued. "Turns out, he tried to take a loan in your name last year. He forged your signature." Ada shut her eyes. Her breath trembled, so even her silence had been stolen, weaponized against her. "You don't need to go back to that life," Chukwuma said gently from across the room. "We can press charges, or we can bury him legally. Your choice." Ada was quiet for a long time. Then she opened her eyes. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I want freedom." That night, she wrote Kunle a message. "You once told me I was useless, that I had nothing. Now you see, I was never the empty one. I was gold you couldn't recognize. Don't call me again. Your season in my life has ended. Adana." She hit send, then blocked his number. Meanwhile, Kunle's face turned purple as he read the message. He threw the phone against the wall, sending it shattering. His breathing turned heavy, his eyes wild. "How dare she, after all I did for her?" But he couldn't finish the sentence, because deep down, for the first time, he was forced to face the truth. She had been the blessing. He had been the burden. The next day, Ada accompanied her father to a charity gala where she was introduced as his daughter, publicly, proudly. Cameras clicked. The air was thick with flashbulbs and whispers. "She's the one they said was dead? Ah, she's beautiful. See how she carries herself? Royalty in her blood." Ada smiled politely but stayed composed. She hadn't come for praise. She came for purpose. During the event, she was invited to speak. She stepped to the microphone, her gold gown flowing, her voice steady. "I was raised in dust," she said. "I was called worthless, insulted for having nothing. But here's what I learned. Worth isn't in riches, it's in survival. It's in rising." The room went still. Goosebumps rippled through the crowd. "Today, I stand not as a billionaire's daughter," she said, "but as proof that diamonds can come from dust." As she stepped down, a woman in the front row, tears in her eyes, stood and began to clap. Then others joined. Ada returned to her seat. Her father reached over and held her hand. "You were always meant for this." But far across the city, in a dim, sweaty bar, Kunle saw her speech go viral on someone's phone. He stared at the screen, his eyes wide, his heart in his throat. His jaw dropped as the anchor said her name. "Adana Obi, the newly found daughter of billionaire Chukwuma Obi." Kunle dropped his drink. "No, no, no, no." Because for the first time, it truly hit him. He had cursed royalty. He mocked her for her lack, but her name now echoes in places he can never enter again. The days that followed were calm, but filled with quiet echoes of everything Ada had endured. No more insults, no more walking on eggshells, no more pretending to be small so someone else could feel big. She now lived in a house where the walls didn't shake with shouting, where every knock on the door wasn't a threat, where she could breathe. And every morning she did. She'd sit in the garden with a cup of ginger tea, barefoot on cool tiles, watching the koi fish swim lazy circles in the pond. She didn't crave revenge. She had no interest in ruining Kunle's life. His life, truthfully, was already ruined by his own choices. He had built his castle on control, but she had walked out the door, and it all came crashing down. He tried to post lies online. He sent messages to gossip blogs, but none of them dared publish, not with Chukwuma Obi's lawyers watching. Instead, his debts rose, his reputation collapsed, and slowly, the world moved on, without him. Meanwhile, Ada moved forward. She began training with her father's foundation, learning how to manage projects, speak at conferences, and mentor girls from the slums. Her life, once reduced to laundry and insults, now stretched wide with possibilities. And then one Saturday, something unexpected happened. She received a letter, not a text, not a voice note, a handwritten letter. The return address was familiar, Ajangbadi. She hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won. The writing was shaky. Adana, if you're reading this, it means I finally did something right by letting you be. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know. I see it now. You were never poor. I was just too blind to see the treasure you were. Take care of yourself, Kunle. She folded the letter carefully. No anger, no bitterness, just a gentle closure. Later that evening, Chukwuma knocked on her door with an envelope. What's this? She asked. He smiled. Your name. Officially changed. All documents updated. She opened it. Adana Grace Obi. She touched the paper lightly. It felt like reclaiming something stolen at birth. I want to use it to help others, she said softly. You already are, he replied. Months passed. Then, on a bright morning with the scent of hibiscus in the air, Ada stood before the gate of a newly built center, the Adana Obi Foundation for Women in Crisis. It was her dream come true, a safe space for women who had lost everything, a place to begin again. As she cut the ribbon, cameras flashed. Journalists gathered, dignitaries applauded, but Ada's eyes found one figure in the crowd, a young woman in worn slippers, clutching a crying baby, watching from a distance. Ada smiled warmly and stepped down from the podium. She walked straight to her and offered a hand. Come in, she said. This place is for you. The woman's eyes widened. She nodded slowly and followed Ada inside, because Ada understood something now. Being poor hadn't made her weak. It had made her strong enough to survive. Being cursed hadn't broken her. It had prepared her for the blessing she didn't even know was hers. And sometimes walking away isn't running, it's rising. She was once mocked for her poverty, but now her name opens doors. Because royalty isn't always born, sometimes it's revealed. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.